Another thing that I forgot to mention earlier that is similar uh, with you, Adina, is I'm extremely organized. And I would love to get Becky's feedback on that because I do the same thing. My closet is color coordinated, and it's summer clothes are over here, winter clothes are over there, and in all aspects of my life, that is my one goal, is to be organized. Now, if I took my camera and panned it around here in this room, you would not say I was organized. But I try very hard with that. What do you say to that, Becky?
Well, I'm just curious. I wanted to ask Adina, are you still that way in your life today?
So I realized it was my ability to control something. I couldn't control the situation, but I could control my closet. I could control my books. I could control my bed. And yes, I still wake up and I make my bed. I like that. It makes me feel good. My closet, please don't look in it. It is a disaster. And I mean, because I can control, and I don't need to have that type of control. Yes, there are certain things that I do have a regiment to, but I think that's just human nature, that we like a routine. By my personality does anyway. I used to be, when I was in the worst part of the abuse, I had my hangers, pink hangers for short sleeve shirts, blue hangers. It had to be to that because the rest of my life was so out of control. But because I could control that, it was the little things that I had control over. Now, not so much. But like I said, there are certain things in life, yeah, I do. Yes. I get dressed. I take a shower in the same way. I brush my teeth. It's just creature of habit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you just answered the question beautifully. That's why I wanted to hear what you had to say about that, because that's the answer to the question that you asked, Rebecca. Everything around you is chaos. Everything around you, complete and utter chaos, and it doesn't feel good. So you control the things that you can. And so I can see as a child, when everything outside of you is chaos, the environment you create for yourself is not. It's orderly, it's intact, so to speak, because everything else around you is not intact. And I think that that's a common characteristic of someone as just a child living in that environment. I mean, we see examples of adults living in abusive relationships where it's required, where you have an abuser that is so controlling that everything has to be exactly so. And so sometimes in our shelter, for example, we'll see the opposite. Someone will come in, they've been in a controlled environment where what you're talking, the hangers have to hang a certain way, and the cans have to turn a certain way, and the towels have to be folded a certain way. And they come into shelter, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off, and they say, oh wait, I don't have to do that anymore. And so then we have to have a conversation about what's acceptable and what's not as far as cleanliness in the shelter setting. But I always have looked at that. I'm like, I'm glad that's what that person is doing. And my employees are like, are you crazy? I'm like, no. What that says to me is that person has found their peace and they're taking their power back. And that's okay. Now we just have to encourage them to take their power back in the guidelines of what our expectations for the program are, but they're taking their power back, and that's a good thing. And so I'm happy to hear you say not as much anymore, because your environment doesn't feel so chaotic anymore.
Exactly.
And that's very powerful.
It is, yes. And I look back and I can see specific things that have changed, and it's wow. Okay, this feels good. I don't have to fold a towel like that. I can, if I really want, I can just wad it up and throw it in the drawer. Whatever. But yeah, there's peace in it.
Yeah, and that feels good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so I think then the good thing when you're raising children is then they can see, oh wait, that regimen that we all had to follow, we don't have to follow anymore. And yeah. In fact, mom finds it funny if I turn the towel upside down, whatever it is, like we can take those things that used to be maybe even, for lack of a better term, a crutch for ourselves, and now they don't have to be anymore. And so we can crumple it up and throw it in a ball and be okay with that. And then when your kids see that, then I think your kids have that ability to exhale their own selves, and they're like, oh wait, hey, this is a fun environment to be in now. Let's go hang out with mom, like what you've talked about. So all that is a testament to the healing that's taken place in your life, I think. I'd say that's progress.
Yay.
I love it. I remember when my sons came to see me, and by this point I had been out, I don't know, a couple of years, something like that, maybe 3 years. They came to see me and they're doing this kind of thing and they're looking around. They're not saying anything, but they're seeing all this dust. And I said, I know. I said, I'm not as a neat freak like I used to be, a clean freak. I said, oh, well. I said, if you don't like it, I can tell you where the dust rags are. And now that you mentioned that, Becky, especially this last week, I'm really learning how to just relax. And if I need to just rest and put my feet up, I do that. And it's so funny because it's taken me all weekend to just do a few, I mean, they're okay, major chores, whatever. They still aren't completely done. And this is Monday night, and it's okay. It's all right. So it's a mess in every single room of my house now. And I hadn't thought about that, Becky.
Well, I encourage people coming out of that situation, especially when that environment has been so controlled, and controlled to the point of physical abuse if it's not so controlled, that a good way to start kind of releasing that and gaining that power back is to schedule do nothing days for yourself. And sometimes we have to schedule them because we are still on that regimen and things have to be done in this way and it has to look like this. But today's the day I'm not going to do anything, and that be okay. And I think we've talked before, Rebecca, one of the greatest gifts I gave myself, honestly, is it's common when someone calls you on the phone to say, hey, what are you doing? I used to be the kind of person that felt like I had to tell you, well, I just got done doing the laundry and I'm going to go make dinner. And the greatest gift I ever gave myself, and I embraced it 100%. Somebody calls me and says, what are you doing? And I say, I'm doing absolutely nothing. And I'm going to continue doing that.
I love it.
So powerful. That is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. You don't have to answer for every second of the day. You don't have to be doing something all of the time. You can do nothing, and that's perfectly fine.
And that's
I see Adina nodding her head. You can relate to that, eh?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I am an adult. It is my ability to make a decision if I want to sit on the couch and do nothing, or whatever. Yeah. And before it used to be, I did this and this and this and this, and it's kind of like that check off, like, oh, but I didn't do that and that and that. And no, you know what? I actually fell asleep on the couch for like 20 minutes and didn't. Yeah. I can do this and it's okay.
Yeah.
And how does that feel?
Incredible. Incredible. Yeah.
Well, it's just taking the power back, and anything that we do that encourages us to take the power back should feel incredible. I mean, if you're a parent, you still have duties that you have to take. You still have to feed your children and you still have to do things like that. So you can't 100% check out and be like, yeah, I'm done. But just even the fact that you can do it on your own timeline or in the way that you want, or you're perfectly okay with the frozen pizza tonight, whatever that has to look like. Just taking that power back and being comfortable with that. Those are the little steps that we can take to get to the place where, hey, today I'm going to stay in my pajamas all day and I'm going to be great with that. And that's okay if we need to. It's okay to say, I'm tired and I need to rest, and this is what I want to do. And I feel like when people coming out of an abusive relationship have not been given permission to say that I'm tired and I need to rest. And so we forget how important just resting is. You can't rest in a chaotic environment, and you can't rest when someone's expectations are coming at you 24/7, and then those expectations change all the time. You can't rest in that situation, and it's okay just to rest.
What do you
That's
think?
my soapbox on that.
I love it. What do you think has changed the most that you see in yourself, Adina?
That's a great question. I feel worthy. I feel, and this is not intended to sound conceited or anything, but I feel beautiful and intelligent. And I struggled with that because through the abuse, I went back to school, and I have a bachelor's, I have a master's, I have a doctorate, I have all of those things, but still, I didn't feel smart or intelligent or worthy or any of those things because of the abuse, because of how horrible they made me feel about myself. But now I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I'm not, I am a child of God. He made me, he designed me, he made me be loved, be silly, be all the things that he made me. So that's what the biggest change that I see. Yeah.
That's fantastic, because when you come out of an abusive situation, you can't mention a good thing about yourself. At the shelter, Becky has a really good exercise that she and her staff do. You want to share that, Becky?
Are you talking about the one where we pass a piece of paper around the room?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me preface it by saying I'm happy to hear you say that you feel that way about yourself. Abusers teach us that it is conceit to say, I'm wonderful. It is narcissistic. They wouldn't call us narcissistic if we think we're smart or if we think we're beautiful or whatever else. And so the day that we get to the place where we can say, I'm awesome and I know it, that's not conceited, that's self-worth. And so what you've just communicated to us is you learned how to esteem yourself from the inside out. And that's amazing. Like that's the ultimate growth right there. But there is an exercise that we do because people come to us completely stripped of that sense of self-worth, that sense of I matter, that sense of I'm a person too kind of thing. And so there's an exercise that we do where we give everybody a blank piece of paper and we ask them to write their name at the top of the paper. And then you pass it to the left, one person at a time. You ask one person at a time to write a positive comment about that person, the name on the paper. And it goes all the way around the room until it comes back to the original owner of the paper, so to speak. That's the easy part. Here's the hard part. The hard part is we put a chair in the middle of the circle and we ask each person to come and take their time sitting in the chair. And when they're sitting in the chair, we ask them to read all of the things that the people in the room have listed, but we ask them to say, I am smart. I am a good mother. I am funny, whatever it is that people see. And then we say, how's that feel? It's challenging for people to say that feels good. Second question, do you see those things inside of, do you see those things to be true about yourself? It's even harder for people to see those. We've been so wired when we're in an abusive relationship to believe only bad things about ourselves. So it's so powerful. What was your experience? You did that, Rebecca. What was your experience when that happened?
I didn't want to read it out loud because I felt like I was going to be lying if I said those things. It didn't matter what was on that list. I can't do that because I don't want to be sitting here lying to you, to anybody, because it was not me. As far as I was concerned, it was not a definition of me.
Yeah. And so then we encourage people to take those pieces of paper. We're not what's the word I'm looking for? Forceful and saying, sit in the room and read these things. If people just absolutely are uncomfortable, obviously we're not going to require that they do that. But we do encourage people to take those pieces of paper with them and then revisit them you know, it may be in the privacy of your own home or whatever else. Revisit that and look at those things and say, can I see these things inside of myself? And then the goal is to yes, I do see those things, but it's definitely a process. Like, how long do you think it has taken you to get to that place where you can say, I'm smart and I'm beautiful and I'm wonderful, you know, whatever those things are? How long do you think it's taken you to get to that place?
Almost a year. Yeah. But what I did realize, what my exes made me believe, is how they see themselves. And that's what I had to step back and say, I'm not them. I'm not the abuse. I am worthy. I am beautiful. I'm like, I am a child of all of those things. I am a masterpiece, and I'm not that other list, you know, the things that, the ugly things. Yeah.
Yeah. And for some strange reason, we do find it easier to believe the negative things about ourselves than the positive. And so whether someone's been a victim of domestic violence or not, it's still a struggle. When we sit in a group and people want to say good things about us, we want to be like, ah, shucks, you know what I mean? We get all weirded out and that kind of thing. But really, it's healthy for all of us to have the ability to embrace that. I'm not the bad things. I'm not bad choices that I've made. I'm not the bad things people have called me. I'm not the bad things people have said about me. I'm the good things that I see inside of me. And that's a huge journey of healing. Even if you're not coming out of an abusive relationship, it's just incredibly compounded when you've got that abuser shouting in your ear, you're all this bad stuff at the same time. That makes it even more challenging.
Mhm.
It's a long road.
You mentioned that you were going to counseling, or that you had been in counseling. How much do you think, how many years total have you gone to counseling? And I have a reason for asking this.
Off and on, oh goodness, years and years. But I have to admit, the counselor I'm seeing now has made the biggest impact for me.
So
Truly.
you would recommend someone going to counseling then?
Absolute, yes, yes. The truth that they have to say, and sometimes they might just listen. Sometimes, like I might just, there's times I just cried, you know, and I'm thinking, I don't care, you know, here's your money, and you know what, that's all I needed for an hour.
Mhm.
And I'm okay with that, because as I look back, and this is one thing that has helped me tremendously, is I journal a great deal. It's not for everybody, I will be totally honest. But to take a step back, and why did I cry for that hour? Why? What was it? What did I take away? Yeah, counseling, it is worth the time commitment. It is worth the financial commitment. It is worth your heart commitment. It absolutely is. Because for me, it's helped me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of it, all of it. I cannot say enough about go, go, go. And if you have EAP, use it. If you don't, find somebody.
I've even heard it said by people that are in the mental health field that they really feel like it's important that they go once a year just to get a checkup. You know, just an emotional mental health checkup. Where am I? Am I on track? You know, what do I need to tweak here or there? Or yeah, I like that.
Yeah, they say the healthiest people go to counseling.
Mhm.
And it's because it forces you to take a look at yourself.
Mhm.
It forces you to discuss those things that are easier to stuff. It forces you to unstuff them. And you walk out a healthier version of yourself than when you went in.
True. That is so true.
We need to make sure that we alleviate the social stigma that people want to put on that. Honestly, even in the world that we live in now, there's still a social stigma I wish there wasn't, because I firmly believe that the healthiest people go to counseling. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with saying, I need help, like what you said you did. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm broken. There's nothing wrong with saying, I just need to have somebody to talk to. And it's honestly better to have that neutral third party to talk to than it is your best friend lots of times,
Mhm.
because your best friend is emotionally involved with you in that situation. The counselor is not. So helpful.
And something I have come to realize, I know things. I don't know everything. You know, I need someone who knows how to get through the process, who knows the questions to ask, knows the stories to share, the passages to state. I don't know that, because if I did, I wouldn't keep doing what I was doing. I mean, and so seeking out someone that has that knowledge, has the heart to help people, yeah, that's what I needed.
What does that mean? You wouldn't keep doing what you were doing? What does that mean?
I saw the abuse, and I sought out abuse, and I sought out abuse again and again. Now I don't. I see the yellow flags, the red flags, whatever you want to call it. I see the flags, you know, and I walk away. I don't have to endure that.
Then you use that expression, I sought out abuse. I'm curious about that. Do you think that's because your first definition of love was abuse is love? And so you were just seeking to be loved, and that's the only way that you knew to be loved? Is that what was happening?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, because one thing that I want to make sure when we're communicating messages about victims of domestic violence, I kind of come from the mindset that abusers prey on their victims. And so I feel like abusers are looking for the victim. I don't feel like, I've heard people say things before like, oh, they're just addicted to chaos, or I've even heard somebody say before, oh, she just likes to be hit. And we all know that that's ludicrous and it's not true. And so I was just curious your take on that. I don't want to communicate that I think that victims of domestic violence are looking for abusers, because I don't think they are.
No.
But I understand where you're coming from in your scenario.
Yeah. And it's learned behavior. It's
Mhm.
what I had been taught, and so it's what I knew. But like you asked me before, what was it? And loving unconditionally and seeing my son, you know, that it was no.
Yeah.
Had you seen the abuse? Had you recognized it, I guess I should say, as abuse prior to your 6-year-old walking towards you? You had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. But the whole view of you don't get divorced, you do whatever you can to make it work.
For me, the mistreatment was normal. And I say that with air quotes around normal. Yeah. Did it feel normal to you since you had come from an abusive home growing up?
At times, the yelling part did, not the being hit, because like I said, my dad didn't physically hit me, but I mean, the yelling was there. I mean, I was in the house when he was yelling at my brother and sister. But the physical part, no.
It's so interesting, because I think about when we have these conversations, nobody in these scenarios are saying, why does he feel like it's okay to hit you? You know, it's that whole, this feels normal, it's okay to scream and yell, but nobody stops and says, wait a minute, why does dad feel like it's okay to hit mom? Or why does dad feel like it's okay to do this? We're not raised in environments that give us the voice to say that. Unfortunately, we have to mature and move out, you know, whatever that takes to redefine even that, asking that question, why is that okay? And that's a huge leap sometimes, I think, when it feels normal. The first person that comes along and says, well, why does your dad do that? You're like, wait a minute, doesn't everybody's dad do that? Like, you know, just that whole, all of a sudden it rocks your world. It's not normal anymore. And that's challenging to process as well, I think.
The first time I heard that was that, how was my friend worded it? He said, you had a very troubled past or something to that effect. And I thought, huh, what? I did? I just thought everybody grew up in an environment like that. I didn't know any different. Did you ever, Adina, when you were growing up, did you ever have friends like come over and spend the night or anything like that? Or were you afraid to because of the behavior they'd see? I'm just curious.
Um, when I was young, yes, they would spend the night, but then we started moving like every 2 to 3 years from place to place to place. So I really stopped having friends because I knew we were gonna move. We would go, you know. They became acquaintances, but not somebody to hold dear. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of, so I moved here to go to college and then stayed because I didn't want my kids to have to go through that.
And we both understand you on that. We have both moved
Absolutely.
a lot, yeah. So have you ever talked to your dad about the emotional abuse or just the abuse in general that you see that he's still doing? You said it's emotional and verbal with your mom. Or did you ever talk to him about what took place in the home as you were growing up?
Somewhat. Not the now. But a couple years ago, he got angry and we had a conversation afterwards, and it was probably one of the first times I think I'd ever seen my dad cry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think I can count on one hand how many times I've seen him cry. But yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't.
No.
And I think back, and I wasn't tactful. I wasn't nice. I wasn't, all of those things that, I'm supposed to be to my mom and dad, but no, it was just brutal honesty that his words were destroying me and my kids. And I couldn't do it.
Mhm.
That's a much nicer way than than what I said it that day.
But when we're in that relationship or home as we're growing up, we're not given the freedom to learn how to say things tactfully or
Yes.
lovingly. We're not given a voice at all.
Mhm.
And Becky and I have talked about this. I really struggle with having it come out the way it's supposed to professionally, if it's in that setting or whatever, because I've never been given that freedom. Can you respond to that, Adina?
I'm a trainer. I'm an educator. So that is like my response. Like I should be able to do that, articulate very, very well. However, when it comes to our parents, I think that all kind of flies to the side, and I don't. So part of what I do is tell people you don't write the way you speak, even though that's how our society tries to do things. That kind of comes out when I talk to my dad.
Well, Becky, I think you mentioned it one time, and I don't remember exactly how you worded it, but in a situation like that, we revert back to still being the child and behaving like a child. Did I get that right?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. You're an educator and you're a trainer, but you're still his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference. Like you can be the most professional person on the planet till you get into a room with your family members. And the professionalism goes out the window because these are the people that know your shorthand. Whether the shorthand is good, bad, or ugly, these are the people that know your shorthand and you interact with them accordingly. And so that doesn't surprise me that it may not have came out all flowers and roses and rainbows and such. It came out as raw emotion because as a child growing up in that environment, you were not allowed to have raw emotion. So now, as an adult woman who's reclaimed that power back in your life, you're absolutely 100% entitled to have raw emotion. And so if it came out that way, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things we work with as women coming into our shelter program, because their voice has been taken away in an abusive relationship. Again, when they're motivated to maintain that power and control over you, you lose your voice. And so Rebecca and I have talked about this before. We'll have women come in and they won't say anything, like they're shy and timid, and they won't look you in the eye. And then as time goes on and they feel stronger and they start to break those patterns and they start to find their voice, 9 times out of 10, the first time they find their voice, it comes across aggressive. It's not assertive. And so, I can't tell you the numbers of times I've had to say, I appreciate the fact that you're comfortable to share your feelings. Let's talk about the difference between aggression and assertion. Because there's a right way and a wrong way. Those are things that we have to learn. And so, like you're saying with your dad, it's not uncommon at all. You were emotionally stunted in your growth with your dad. It's not uncommon at all to still kind of go back into that, this is my dad, I'm emotionally stunted. And it comes across that way. I mean, you don't owe anybody an apology for that by any means.
Yeah.
I'd say kudos to you because you found your voice and you told him what he needed to hear, regardless of whether he wanted to receive it or not. You had the ability to say it.
And I want to echo, I did not speak at all as a child. Didn't. Like, even when my mom and dad would go to like parent teacher conferences, they're like, she's so shy, she doesn't talk. When we call on her to read, she doesn't. It took me I was in college before I actually found a voice.
I left the black cloud behind you.
Yeah. I could be me.
Mm-hmm.
Did it also help that nobody at college knew you?
Yes. Yeah. But my dad actually worked at the college.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a bit challenging, but none of the students did. And
Really is. That must have been some interesting dynamics.
It was. Dad would behave one way at work sometimes, and then he would, like, the dad I knew would sometimes come out, and people would ask, is your dad always like that? I mean, what do I say? Yeah, he's,
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't be honest in that situation.
Because my parents' livelihood depended on, him working, and
Sure.
if he was, yeah.
What about your brother and your sister? Do you have good relationship with them, or is it?
We will talk every once in a while, but it's not like a daily thing or a weekly thing. They don't live close. I love them because they are my brother and sister. But honestly, the abuse impacted each of us very differently.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, like the one became like your father, and then the other one was emotionally stunted. My brother was a yeller, and then he had children, and the one didn't handle him yelling at all. So then he got help, and it's crazy to see the difference of who he was even 10 years ago versus now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty phenomenal. It really is. My sister, she married a man who was not physically abusive, just emotionally abusive, and did not stay married long. And she's very, very strong, very opinionated, very, very, yeah. And so it's interesting, but no, we're not as close as I would like us to be, but we're just so different,
Yeah.
you know.
Are they close with your parents still, your brother and sister?
My sister calls them every single day. Every single day.
Wow.
And which kind of makes me laugh. My brother, not so much. I think like he'll call maybe once a month. Yeah. But I think he probably endured way more than I even can imagine. Just with him being 6 years older than I don't know what happened in those 6 years that I wasn't even, well, and I mean, even probably longer than that when I was a toddler or whatever. I don't know.
What's been your biggest challenge as you on your healing journey?
Forgiveness.
Of yourself or others?
Depending on what point in the journey, to be honest. In the beginning, I said, I forgive them. No, those were just words. But I realized I needed to walk through much more of the process before I could actually truly forgive. And then once that happened, it was looking at myself and saying, hey, am I forgiving myself or am I forgiving them? Or is it, back and forth type of thing? So I guess really forgiveness just all around has been probably the biggest journey and process for me.
So what's been your biggest accomplishment then?
Loving. But one thing that I've found is through this whole journey, the more I serve, whether that's at church or in the community or whatever, the more I heal.
Why do you suppose that is?
I think I don't know if it's my personality that I feel filled up when I help others. And that's not even my spiritual, gifts or whatever. And it's not even my love language either, which is kind of ironic, but it just, when I am serving and helping others, it makes me realize I can get through this, and I'm rocking this journey, this process, so yeah.
Yeah, it feels good to give back.
Yeah.
We see that happen a lot in our shelter setting where someone will come in that position where they've basically come broken with nothing. And then as they go through and weeks turn into a few months or whatever else, all of a sudden they're like, what can I do? What do you need me to do? Can I paint something? Can I clean something? Can I cook something? What do you want me to do? And that act of service is just that I'm starting to feel good about me and seeing the gifts that I have, and I want to share those with other people. And I think that give back is part of that process too. Like it just feels good. It feels good to acknowledge I have something worth giving, and then you give it and people want it. And so that feels really good too.
Plus it's taking the focus off yourself.
I've found that in the process of serving, there's some silence inside of me. And that's kind of where I'm like, okay, I'm processing instead of do. Because sometimes I think we just become busy just to be busy. And in the serving, we kind of have some silence and personal inspection, I think.
Then where do you go from here?
A lot of people are saying, hey, are you ready to date? I've thought about it. Here's what's crazy. I never wanted to be alone. And I'm actually okay. I'm good. Like, I kind of can't wait to just like watch TV by myself sometimes. And I'm not going to lie. There's times that I miss like turning and like looking at somebody. That was really funny, but I realized God is working on me in this place, and he's preparing me for something to come. And I don't know if he's going to call me back to ministry. I don't know. I have a super stressful job and I absolutely love it. So there's that, but yeah, I don't know. And honestly, for the first time in my life, I'm okay not knowing. I know that sounds, and people that know me and are going to watch this, they're like, oh my gosh, like, that's not ever been me at all. Ever. Like literally, I had every minute of every single day planned. Color-coded planned. Yeah.
Boy, that sounds really familiar.
Not me, I fly by the seat of my pants.
Yes. She does.
That's funny.
But that's a gift I gave myself as well, that I don't have to be
Yeah.
orderly and regimented. I do what I want. I like that expression. I do what I want.
And she lives by that.
In a loving, nonviolent, compassionate, caring way.
Yeah. Yeah, she really does.
Well, if you had to sum it up, or if you have any unsaids or things that you wish we would have asked you, or I think we're probably at that place.
I just thank you both for letting me have this opportunity.
I found that the more you tell your story, the easier it becomes to tell. First of all, but then the second thing is, with every retelling of the story, I feel like more healing takes place.
Yes.
And so, being vulnerable and being willing to take that risk and share this part, and then you find somebody who receives it, you can tell a little bit more the next time and a little bit more the next time. And then it reduces the power that it has over you. But again, that's because the healing is taking place in the telling of the story.
Yes. I'm taking control of if I tell it and how I tell it and when I tell it. And not that I don't have a very controlling spirit, but yeah, because in abuse, there's so much control over that they held over me, that now I'm making the choices.
Yeah.
Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Adina, thank you so much for coming on and being willing to be vulnerable with us and just tell your story. I think it's awesome. And folks, if you have any questions for Adina, feel free to leave them in the comments section. Nobody else is going to see it. We have it set so that we have to see it first before we make it public. So feel free to do that. But just remember, folks, that no matter where you are in the process, you're always free to soar.